Hello and welcome to the Daily Scripture Podcast. My name is Jerome Lavelle, and I hope that you're having a very pleasant day today. Today we will be looking at Acts chapter 22, verse 30, and chapter 23, verses 6 through 11. Wishing to determine the truth about why Paul was being accused by the Jews, the commander freed him and ordered the chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin to convene. Then they brought Paul down and made him stand before them. Paul was aware that some were Sadducees and some Pharisees, so he called out before the Sanhedrin, "My brothers, I am a Pharisee, the son of Pharisees. I am on trial for hope in the resurrection of the dead." When he said this, a dispute broke out between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the group became divided. For the Sadducees say there is no resurrection or angels or spirits, while the Pharisees acknowledge all three. A great uproar occurred, and some scribes belonging to the Pharisee party stood up and sharply argued, "We find nothing wrong with this man. Suppose a spirit or an angel has spoken to him." The dispute was so serious that the commander, afraid that Paul would be torn to pieces by them, ordered his troops to go down and rescue Paul from their midst and take him into the compound. The following night the Lord stood by him and said, "Take courage, for just as you have borne witness to my cause in Jerusalem, so you must also bear witness in Rome." Today in the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 22, verse 30, and chapter 23, verses 6 through 11, we hear details of Paul's coming before the Sanhedrin in Jerusalem. As the passage describes, the Sanhedrin was made up of both the Sadducees as well as the Pharisees. These two religious sects had different views on a few elements or interpretations of the Jewish faith. In general, the Sadducees were wealthy, upper-level Jerusalem men who did not believe in the resurrection of the body and angels and spirits. The Pharisees, on the other hand, were from a broader economic class and were known for a more strict interpretation of the behavioral elements in the Torah. Today we see in Paul's explanation and witness of Jesus, and as he explained his backstory to the members of the Sanhedrin, that a dispute arose between those two sects, the Sadducees and the Pharisees. What was to be an inquiry in front of the Sanhedrin, defending his faith and his witness, turned into a zoo, and yet another skirmish for the Sadducees and the Pharisees to take potshots at each other. The mission or the objective of the day was completely co-opted. The competing sects could not see the forest for the trees, and Paul was taken out of their midst. A question: does the description of this scene remind you of anything that you may have been involved with at church or in your family or at work or any other environment? It certainly does for me. Old arguments, old scores, old slights, old offenses create a barrier for a productive interaction and moving forward with a goal. In today's case, it was the old division over doctrinal matters between the two groups. That is what keeps the Sanhedrin from conducting its business. Paul had caused a ruckus in the city with his teachings to the extent that the Roman soldiers became involved. He was to make account for himself in front of the Sanhedrin, but that did not happen. He didn't have an opportunity to witness for Jesus. The same holds true in our similar situations when we lose sight of the big picture and allow our human nature, our human emotions to distract us, and thus we give up the opportunity to witness in those moments. My reflection today, to the extent I can, is to be a positive witness for Christ in all situations I find myself in, to not let the past be the enemy of the present and the future, and to remember Jesus' exhortation and expectation that we forgive and that we love, especially those who might be the hardest to do so for. Give me that strength and perspective, Lord, today and every day. Thank you for joining the Daily Scripture Podcast. My name is Jerome Lavelle, and remember, our word of the day is the past does not define the present and future. Until next time, be well and be blessed.